A voice screams, "Yanhua!" as the injured purple-haired girl is held. Her brown-haired mother violently shoves her back, forbidding her from leaving. Crying in a dark box, Yanhua desperately asks her mother what's happening. Her mother frantically insists she has no time to explain, commanding her to hide. Yanhua looks up from her hiding spot, frightened and tearful. With a pained expression, her mother stands guard as Yanhua quietly agrees to stay hidden. "I'm sorry, Yanhua," she says, gripping the bar to lock her inside. As she secures the wardrobe doors, she makes Yanhua promise never to come out. Her mother screams, a final warning of punishment, as Yanhua pushes against the locked doors. Trapped in darkness, Yanhua's eyes widen in terror. She screams, "No, stop that!" watching in horror as her mother is attacked. Huddled in fear, she desperately wonders who is hurting her mother. An assailant notes the woman was trying to escape while his partner asks about their orders for her. The men decide they can kill her, as their target was only the man, one complaining of missing a banquet. Staring into a beam of light, she realizes her mother must have known they were coming. Suddenly, Yanhua clutches her head in agony, confused about why she is at home after being at the Sinwell Nation banquet. The scene shifts to a quiet, empty room, focusing on a wardrobe. One of the assassins, his weapon bloodied, tells his partner it's time to return to Sinwell Palace. But a bloody hand suddenly grabs his ankle. It's the mother, clinging to him as the assassin shouts in disbelief that she's still alive. She collapses, whispering Yanhua's name with her last breath. In a flash of movement, the assassin is decapitated. The remaining assassin charges, vowing to finish the job this time. Hidden away, Yanhua quietly weeps for her mother. A glowing vision of her mother appears before her. The vision of her mother offers a gentle, reassuring smile. An elderly man with white hair finds Yanhua, calling her name in relief. As the man expresses his relief, her first waking question is for her mother. He introduces himself as her father's friend, explaining she vanished from the banquet while her mother's body lies nearby. Stunned, Yanhua wonders who could have done this. She realizes it must be Sinwell Nation, who had been chasing her father. That night, the main palace burned until it was reduced to ashes. She recalls going to the banquet with her father, but falling asleep almost immediately. And when she awoke, she found herself back at home. It was her father who had carried her from the burning palace while she slept. Her father disappeared after entrusting her to her mother, leaving Yanhua screaming for her. She reaches out, crying her mother's name in anguish. In a dark room, the old man tells her she can no longer live as Yanhua. "I have a request," she says, and he asks what it is. With unwavering resolve, she asks him to teach her the way of the sword. The old man looks at her intently, asking for her reason. She declares she will find her father and destroy Sinwell Nation with her own hands. Years later, under a full moon, she stands poised on a rooftop as a voice screams, "It's the swallow." The assassin swallow has appeared, a confident smirk on her face. As the order to fire arrows is given, she leaps into action, effortlessly deflecting them. A man cries as she cuts through the guards, who desperately try to block her from the residence. Identified as the swallow, the guards are ordered to prepare the battlefield and fire at once. A volley of arrows is unleashed. She crouches low, swords at the ready as arrows rain down upon her. With incredible speed, she gracefully weaves through the deadly barrage. The guards search frantically, wondering where she disappeared. A guard screams for the sly thing to come out as she blurs past him. With a swift strike, she decapitates another guard. Scratched and determined, she searches for her final target. She moves silently through the moonlit estate. Her target, a man with a long beard, flees past the bodies of his men. He runs for his life, but she is already upon him. A cruel smile appears as she imagines her reward for killing him. The man panics, realizing they sent the infamous assassin, the Swallow. Fleeing, he desperately wonders which of his rivals wants him dead. Believing he's escaped, he plans to get reinforcements, unaware she's right behind him. He senses a presence and slowly turns around. His eyes widen in sheer terror at what he sees. A different figure approaches as he demands to know their identity. A mysterious man in an ornate mask appears, sword drawn. From a rooftop, Swallow watches in surprise, wondering who this newcomer is. Her eyes widen in shock at the unexpected turn of events. The masked man impales her target from behind. She realizes someone else was also hired to kill Lord Co. Annoyed, she glares at the man who stole her mission. The masked man finishes the job, blood splattering. He stands over the body, his face hidden by the mask. Swallow confronts him, noting his bizarre mask. The silent masked man stands ready, his bloody sword gleaming. She notes he isn't an assassin and demands to know who he is. Clang! Their blades meet in a furious clash. Their swords remain locked in a test of strength. She grimaces, surprised by his impressive skill. The masked man vows to smash that mask first. He launches a powerful spinning attack, which she narrowly dodges. In a fluid motion, she prepares for her next move. He overpowers her, sending her stumbling back with a powerful kick. The masked man follows up with a swift, close-range strike. As their swords connect again, a high-pitched sound rings out. She pauses, wondering about the strange bird-like sound. The masked man's sword continues to emit the sound. Her eyes narrow as she realizes he must be signaling someone. Deciding to retreat, she challenges him as she leaps away. She pauses in the distance, silently watching. Guards with a torch arrive to investigate a scream they heard. One guard dismisses it, but another spots the carnage and yells. They stare in horror at the courtyard, littered with bloody corpses. A guard shouts that Lord Sio's residence has been attacked. Kneeling by a body, a guard confirms the killings were recent. Villagers quietly go about their business at night. Now, in different clothes, Yeonhwa walks calmly through the village. A guard stops a traveler, accusing him of coming from the hill. Yeonhwa listens as villagers gossip about Lord Sio's murder. She muses that the news of the attack spread quickly. She calmly tells a guard she was merely taking a shortcut. Taka's sudden sound echoes. A guard notes the purple-haired woman is a stranger. The guard requests her cooperation as she feigns annoyance. With a glowing red eye, she prepares an unwilling solution. She claims to be a lost student out for a walk. The flustered guard insists he's just questioning residents. As she prepares to leave, the guard offers to escort her. A mysterious man with long blue hair appears. The man warns her it's dangerous to be alone. She looks up, surprised by his sudden appearance. The blue-haired man walks past, his face hidden in shadow. Crash. He deliberately bumps into her as he passes. Furious, she shouts at the rude man who didn't apologize. Vowing revenge, she notices a green ornament he dropped. She stoops to pick up the strange object. The guards suddenly stare at her with suspicion and anger. She wonders why they're staring, as she only found an ornament. Giving up, she shows the ornament to the guard. She sweetly asks him to find the owner, but he yells for her capture. Surrounded, she is accused of being a rebel carrying their ornament. She remains perfectly calm, a slight smile on her face. The scene shifts to a moonlit palace, lauded for its wise king. A hand unrolls a scroll as a voice scoffs, "How ridiculous." The assassin leader dismisses the king's reputation as nonsense. The assassin leader reminds her of the royal family's cruelty. Blood-soaked, she demands to know who harmed her parents. He warns her off, but she retorts, this is why she became an assassin. He questions her quest for danger, but she vows painful revenge. She declares her only purpose is revenge and finding her father. He reveals her target. Prince Yunwol sent the army. The leader warns her that the prince is cruel and merciless. Her eyes blazing, she asks if he understands being left alone. She renounces her old identities, now defined only by her mission. She screams that the girl she once was is gone forever. She reminds him of his 10-year-old promise to help her. He finally agrees, offering her one last mission. Her mission: kill Lord Sio to gain entry to Shinwol Palace. Back in the present, soldiers are ordered to capture the rebels alive. She realizes the blue-haired man must be a rebel. She recalls the masked assassin, who also fought at Lord Sio's. Drawing a dagger, she decides to deal with the soldiers first. An order is shouted, "Take the rebel to Shinwol Palace." A wicked smile spreads across her face at the news. Her plan is falling into place perfectly. In a flash, she allows herself to be subdued. Now in a cell, she smirks, her plan working perfectly. She thinks she should have gotten captured from the start. The scene transitions to the imposing Shinwol Palace. Inside a guard room, a guard admits she's tough. The guards complain that she's silent and well-trained by the rebels. Bound in a cell, the purple-haired woman is threatened with execution. Unbroken, she insists she merely found the ornament. Two guards discuss her case, concluding that as a rebel, she will be hanged. From her cell, she observes the many soldiers guarding the prison. She thinks back, trying to recall the layout of the palace. She remembers that the royal quarters are located in a separate area. The night wind rustles quietly through the trees. She sits silently in her cell, waiting for the right moment. A confident smirk forms on her lips as her eyes begin to glow. Snap! The ropes binding her fall uselessly to the floor. A surprised guard peers in, asking if she is finally ready to confess. With glowing red eyes, she reaches out with an unseen force. Erg. The guard chokes, grabbed by an invisible hand. She lunges forward, violently slamming his head into the bars. In a blur of motion, she escapes into the palace grounds. A door creaks open, marking the start of her escape. Pow! She stands over the unconscious guard, free from her cell. In an adjacent room, she has already neutralized several more guards. Pausing for a moment, she sighs that her favorite skirt is ruined. She moves like a blur across the moonlit courtyard. Atop a roof, a group of assassins notes their arrival at Shinwol Palace. A masked assassin declares their mission: to kill the king and the prince. As the assassins split up, she watches from below, wondering their targets. Drawing her sword, she turns with purpose. Elsewhere, royal guards rush to Xinjiang Hall to protect the king. She hides, deducing the prince must be in the royal residence. A desperate shout to "Get out of here!" suddenly stops her. She turns toward the sound, her expression hardening. Arga. An assassin's blade cuts down a defender. A loyal guard urges Prince Dagon to flee, but the prince refuses to leave him. An unseen commander's voice orders them to bring the prince's head. Peeking from behind a door, she wonders where all the soldiers have gone. She is stunned to realize the royal family is protected by only 3 eunuchs. "Out of my way," a determined eunuch shouts, clashing with an assassin. "Herg," he groans in pain as the assassin's blade presses closer. Ugh, their blades remain locked in a desperate struggle for survival. Ah, the eunuch screams as the assassin finally overpowers him. Vowing never to forgive them, the eunuch faces the assassin's sword. A voice from above condemns the slaughter taking place in Shinwol Palace. The eunuch strains, thinking he needs to hold on just a little longer. He is suddenly surrounded and brutally cut down by the assassins. Eunuch Kim, a man in white robes, cries out as his loyal guard falls. An assassin raises his sword to deliver the final blow. "Die, Prince Yunwol," the assassin roars, bringing his sword down. Whoosh! A powerful kick sends the assassin flying. Her eyes burn with cold determination as she enters the fray. "Who are you?" the shocked assassin shouts, demanding she not interfere. She calmly parries the assassin's furious downward strike. "URK," her blade slashes across the assassin's chest. An assassin lunges, demanding to know who she is. With a swift kick, she creates an opening. Pow! She smashes her sword hilt into his jaw. Gah! The assassin is sent flying backward from the blow. She dismisses her foes as pathetic, then senses a presence and asks who is there. The man in white robes asks who she is as she points her bloody sword at him. She smirks, realizing this is her chance to kill the prince. She declares there is no one left to help him now. Her blade swings in for the kill. Her sword stops just inches from his throat. Her eyes widen in a shocking realization. He's blind. The blind man identifies her as a woman and asks if she killed the assassins. She crouches, suddenly hesitant to kill him. The prince listens intently, thinking there's no need to rush. He senses a threat from behind her and demands they identify themselves. Whoosh! A surviving assassin lunges past her, targeting the prince. "Look out!" she screams, realizing an assassin was left. As the assassin shouts for Prince Yunwol to die, she panics, needing him alive for the truth. The prince remains unnervingly calm. His head tilted, he focuses, listening to the attack with heightened senses. In a flash of insight, he perceives the incoming strike. Clang! In a blur of motion, he perfectly parries the assassin's blade. Now standing, he calmly asks if she is also after his life. Petals seem to float through the quiet courtyard. The prince stands poised in the aftermath. He rests his hand on his sword. She stares in disbelief, wondering how he killed an assassin in a single stroke. Revealing he cannot see, he asks her to speak and confirm if anyone else is alive. She turns away, confirming that he is the only one left. He correctly guesses she is the prisoner who was recently brought in, and she confirms it. He calmly states that escaped prisoners from Shinwol Palace are sentenced to hanging. With soldiers approaching, he warns that she won't be able to escape. He then makes an unexpected offer. "I will save your life." In exchange, he asks her to become his guard knight. She bursts into genuine, hearty laughter. She scoffs at his ridiculous offer, barely able to restrain herself from killing him. He calls her arrogant, questioning her ability to face the incoming soldiers alone. As archers appear on the rooftops, he dares her to fight them. He tells her that his own situation is just as abandoned. She listens, a flicker of consideration on her face. The prince announces himself to the soldiers, who express relief for Prince Dagon's safety while identifying her as the escapee. Surrounded by archers, she realizes she cannot deflect all their arrows at this range. She decides her only option is to charge straight in and behead them all. As an archer draws his bow, she plans to kill the soldiers and flee with the prince. "Stop," the prince commands with quiet authority. The archers halt their attack at his word. The soldiers lower their bows, waiting for his command. The prince declares that she saved him, but a soldier protests protecting a criminal. "Do you dare question the orders of royalty?" he asks with a cold fury. The soldier immediately bows, begging forgiveness for his disrespect. A dark-haired man asks where the king is, and his companion begins to answer. The companion replies that the king is waiting for Prince Dagon in Xinjiang Hall. Thud! The end of a staff firmly strikes the stone floor. As Prince Dagon and the purple-haired woman enter the hall, An unseen person expresses relief for his safety. The king, Janwol, scoffs that assassins are no threat, while a courtier thinks that the soldiers he sent were unneeded. Prince Daegun explains that the woman, though an escaped criminal, saved him from an assassin. He adds that she was recaptured after saving him, prompting her to internally call his story nonsense. The prince worries that at this rate, she will be executed. He leans in close and formally requests that the king appoint her as his guard knight. She furiously whirls around, demanding to know why he is deciding her fate. King Janwol of Shinwol Nation remarks that, while he has granted past requests, this is the most troublesome one yet. Prince Daegun bows, explaining that the attack cost him all his guards, and he fears stronger assassins may come. As the prince insists he would be dead without her, she glares at the king, wondering if she should just kill him now. The prince falsely claims she risked her life solely to save him, which she internally denies ever happening. The king thoughtfully considers the prince's unusual request. An official named Eunuch Joe kneels, pleading with the king not to grant the request. Eunuch Joe protests that appointing a criminal is against royal protocol, but the king smirkingly grants the request anyway, dismissing the prince. Prince Daegun expresses his gratitude as Eunuch Joe cries out in dismay from the throne steps. The eunuch lectures the king for disregarding protocol, but the king calls him noisy and tells him to quiet the other officials. Eunuch Joe continues his protest, arguing that the king is being too lenient with Prince Daegun. The king smiles, thinking to himself that he likes the look in the woman's eyes. His comment leaves Eunuch Joe completely baffled. Smirking, the king muses that she is far too precious to kill. The scene shifts to a quiet, moonlit bridge, leading away from the palace. As they walk, she incredulously asks if she is truly meant to be his guard knight. He states coolly that if he had left her, she would have died. She scoffs, boasting that mere soldiers are no match for her, and calling him foolish for trusting a stranger. Her eyes flash with hatred as she rejects the idea of protecting her enemy, vowing to destroy him. He turns, explaining that her status as an outsider is precisely why he chose her. The prince reveals the threats he faces are from within the palace, and she questions his true motives. He admits it is because she witnessed him, a blind man, kill an assassin, leading her to realize he wants to keep her under surveillance. She insists she won't speak of it, and asks to be freed, recalling the flash of his blade. With a somber expression, he confesses that inside the palace he cannot fight, and must live as a frail, blind man. He presents his proposal again, but she scoffs at accepting something so trivial. He suggests that her escape and subsequent rescue of him were not a coincidence. She is visibly stunned by his sharp intuition. He looks down, knowingly asking if she came to the palace looking for him. He asks for her protection until he completes a task, promising to grant her anything in return. She demands to know what task. His purpose revealed, he declares his mission is to restore the broken Shinwol Nation, and asks her again to be his guard. She hesitates, realizing that if she kills him now, her quest for revenge will end prematurely. Her resolve trembles as she questions if killing the prince would truly solve anything. She decides to calm down, realizing she needs to use him to achieve her own goal. Making her decision, she offers a counterpromise. He must grant her anything in exchange for her service. She inwardly swears to take his head the moment she finds her father. Observing them from a balcony, the king accepts her condition with a simple "I promise." A mysterious figure in dark armor and a purple cape watches them from a rooftop. The purple-haired woman stands alone, her long hair flowing in the wind. The man in the purple cape asks an unseen subordinate if the assassins he sent were successful. A voice from the shadows reports that all the dispatched assassins have been wiped out. The man, an enraged old lord, demands to know who could have killed his elite assassins. The subordinate reports that they could not determine who defeated the assassins. The old lord orders his subordinate to hurry back to the palace and find out. He runs in frustration, wondering where someone named Hyosung is. He thinks Hyosung could have handled this, recalling the last mission involved Lord Seo. The old lord, with a mark on his forehead, wonders if she discovered what happened 10 years ago. The scene shifts to a serene courtyard of a traditional estate. In a flashback, the old lord confronts a woman, asking why she is alone as she recoils in shock. He demands to know where he has hidden Manhwa, revealing General Baek entrusted his daughter with an heirloom key. The woman brandishes a knife, declaring her daughter is not there, and demanding to know what happened to her husband. She questions why he's asking about General Baek, and he reveals the general fled after stealing the key. Her eyes narrow with fury as she realizes they are hunting her husband. She lunges forward with her knife, shouting that he's spouting nonsense. How? He effortlessly catches her wrist, stopping the attack cold. Grasping her throat, he chides her for not understanding the situation and demands she hand over the key. She struggles, insisting her daughter Manhwa has nothing important and vowing to kill him if he harms her. His patience gone, he shoves her aside and orders the key to be found by sunset. The woman's lifeless body lies in a pool of blood in the courtyard. The old lord turns away, remarking that she made a foolish choice. He notices a bloody handprint on a nearby wooden cabinet. Inside the slightly ajar cabinet, a pink dress is visible. Wah. He opens the door to find a terrified young Yeonhwa huddled inside. He stares down at the trembling child with a cold, cruel expression. His face twists into a maniacal grin as he begins to laugh. Kneeling before the crying girl, he introduces himself as her father's friend and asks what she remembers before they parted. He asks if it was a key, and the sobbing girl echoes his words. She tearfully says she doesn't know, as the ornate key-shaped pendant on her necklace glints. He internally scoffs, certain that General Baek entrusted the key to his daughter. The scene shifts to young Yeonhwa sitting alone, staring blankly into the garden. Months later, the old lord observes that she still hasn't recovered from the shock. He approaches the despondent girl, asking how long she plans to stay this way. She clutches her robe in fear as he warns that Shinwol Nation is still hunting her father and will come for her if she's discovered. She gazes out the window as he finishes his thought, saying they must not remain idle. Through a hazy memory of butterflies, he urges her to remember quickly. He glances at her, telling her she must protect what family she has left. The young girl's head hangs low in sorrow. A single tear of blood-red grief falls from her eye. A promotional page highlights other available series for the reader. The story returns to the present, introducing Yoonwol's personal attendant, a blonde-haired woman named Haesol. Haesol shows the purple-haired woman her new quarters, apologizing for the rushed preparations. As Haesol offers her help, the woman thinks to herself that the simple room is perfect for a quick escape. Two court ladies watch from the hallway, complaining that a criminal is being housed near them. The ladies gossip about the prince bringing in a criminal, and her apparent closeness to Lord Haesol. One scolds her friend Yulji for not being scared of the nasty criminal, calling her clueless. The woman insists Yulji's naivete makes her a target and urges her to get the head lady to move the newcomer out. Yulji kindly suggests that the new guard might be a good person if they just talk to her. The purple-haired woman turns her head, a terrifying and malicious grin spreading across her face. The two gossiping court ladies freeze in shock and fear. Terrified, they wonder if she heard them talking. Outside, Haesol comments on the unsettled atmosphere, and the purple-haired woman dryly agrees, saying she smiled but wasn't met with one in return. Haesol reassures her, explaining she will now guard Prince Dagon and switch shifts with her at 7 p.m. An unseen person anticipates someone's arrival in their quarters. The purple-haired woman walks purposefully along a palace corridor. Seeing Prince Dagon, she wonders if he is the man named Hyo-sun. He turns, telling her she is late and instructing her to follow him. She agrees, internally vowing to discover his true nature. After hours of walking, she suspects he is trying to lower her guard. The scene shifts to the bustling palace kitchen. A servant carries a tray of food covered with ornate golden lids. The woman questions Haesol for bringing food separately from the court ladies. Haesol explains that she prepares the prince's meals herself due to past poisoning attempts. Realizing poison is not an option, the woman decides a direct attack is necessary. She continues to follow the prince through the palace grounds. She fumes internally, questioning the prince's leisurely stroll and his apparent lack of concern for the threats against him. She confronts him, questioning if he is truly blind given his skill with a sword and confident gait. He replies that he cannot see even a glimmer of light. Tap. His cane strikes the ground as he explains it's a tool to avoid suspicion. Having lived in the palace for 25 years, he has memorized every path. She asks who threatens him, and he reveals it is likely one of the nation's nobles. He explains that assassin attacks have become frequent, and he is unable to fight back. She questions why soldiers are not responsible for his protection, but he remains silent. He somberly admits that after his father's death, all of his allies vanished. Her red eyes widen slightly as she absorbs his revelation. He correctly predicts the location of a nearby staircase, which she confirms. He warns her to be careful, noting the dangerously uneven heights of the steps. She remarks that he must have fallen often, and he agrees, explaining he must know every corner to survive. He admits that he must feign weakness and fall to maintain his cover, sparking her curiosity. He explains that a capable blind man inspires caution, not the sympathy he needs to survive. He turns to lead her somewhere else. She pauses, thoughtfully observing him as they walk. Her attention is drawn to a crowd gathering around a door covered in posters, and she wonders what is happening. Wah! A panicked voice from inside a library shouts that something terrible has happened. A courtier rushes to find Minister Zhang, urging him to come quickly. Minister Zhang turns, coolly asking about the commotion. He hurries across the courtyard toward the disturbance. Minister Zhang approaches the wall, his expression grim as he reads one of the posters. A messenger bursts into the throne room, reporting an urgent matter in the palace. A young, purple-eyed king on the throne tells the man to calm himself and explain. The messenger holds up a crumpled notice, reporting that posters have appeared throughout the palace. He reads a line from the poster, vowing to reveal the truth and revive Shinwol Nation, causing a stir among the court. The poster announces a plan to retrieve the nation's treasured heirloom at a specific time. The message ends with a direct threat to the king, who leaps up in fury, demanding to know who the traitor is. The flustered messenger reports that the poster is unsigned. The enraged king orders soldiers dispatched immediately to find the culprits and tear down every poster. An elderly official steps forward, humbly suggesting they focus all forces on protecting the king's quarters and Xinjiang Hall. The king questions the suggestion, asking if they are to abandon the prince's protection, but another official agrees the king's safety is paramount. The entire court bows in unison, declaring that the king's safety must come first against the rebels' threat. The young king looks distressed as his court pleads for his understanding. Under orders, soldiers quickly strip the offending posters from the palace walls. Two court ladies whisper fearfully about the posters, one recalling a soldier who was flogged for discussing a hidden truth. A long-forgotten incident begins to stir once more in the minds of the people. Reading the crumpled poster, Hyo-sung realizes the commotion happened the day her father vanished and her mother died. A look of grim certainty crosses her face. She concludes her father was caught up in that incident. Prince Daegun calls out her name, and she turns to acknowledge him. She grabs his arm and pulls him away, frustrated by the crowds and wondering where he is taking her. The prince calmly explains that with the rebel notices posted, it's best for her to keep a low profile. Annoyed, she questions if that's the reason he dragged her to such a remote area. She dismisses his concern as unnecessary meddling, wondering why he cares if she hears rumors. She confronts him, asking why the nobles despise him so much. He explains that since his father's death, the nobles' tyranny has grown unchecked. When he reported their misdeeds, they became desperate to eliminate him. She wonders aloud if the former king's loyal aides could also be corrupt. The prince somberly reveals most of his father's aides mysteriously left the palace after an incident 10 years ago. The scene shifts to a quiet palace building under the moonlight. Hua Si Hyo-sung stands alone, deciding to wait for the rebels now that her guard duty is over. The wind carries a piece of paper past her, catching her attention. A hand swiftly plucks the fluttering paper from the air. She turns, her hair whipping in the wind, to see who caught it. A stern-looking man in ornate robes holds up the paper, asking if it is hers. She politely thanks him and confirms that it is. Whoosh! He pulls the paper back just as she reaches for it. Her eyes widen in shock at his unexpected action. The man studies her intently, thinking she looks familiar for Prince Daegun's new guard knight. He asks if she has ever been to Shinwol Palace before. Her heart pounds as she wonders if this stranger somehow knows her. Her thoughts race with a single terrifying question. Does he know Yanhwa? Gripping her dagger, she prepares for the worst, internally vowing to kill him if he has recognized her. Before he can answer, a panicked shout pierces the night. Rebels! The alarm spreads as a voice screams that rebels have appeared at the main gate. Furious at the interruption, she realizes she missed his answer. She runs after the man, desperately calling for him to wait. A group of long-haired, masked rebels prepare to storm the palace. Their masked leader gives a simple command: let's go. A commander on a rooftop orders his soldiers to attack the rebels as they descend. Erg. The rebels land with stunning force, overwhelming the palace guards. A powerful impact echoes through the courtyard. A soldier gasps in terror as a masked warrior appears before him. The masked rebel brandishes his staff, ready to strike. Hack! The staff connects, felling a soldier with a single blow. Soldiers cry out in pain as the rebels press their relentless attack. A line of royal guards stands firm as their captain orders them to let no rebel survive. The grand inner gates of the palace swing open. The tip of a weapon peeks around a wooden pillar. A rebel with a skull mask fiercely engages a palace guard in combat. A soldier watches the chaos, muttering the word, "Rebels." A heavy blow lands somewhere inside the palace hall. A lone, long-haired figure stands in a doorway, surrounded by fallen guards. The king is urged to evacuate as his royal guard forms a shield wall to buy him time. The long-haired king remains impassive amidst the chaos. He turns to the mysterious figure in the doorway, asking if they are the rebel leader. The figure stands over the defeated, but living soldiers as the king questions why they haven't been killed. A blade slides smoothly into its sheath. The long-haired king declares his target isn't mere soldiers. The masked rebel leader raises his glowing sword, ready to fight. Hyo-sung sprints through the courtyard, demanding to know where the rebels are. The scene shifts to a quiet palace building under the moonlight. Clang! The sound of swords clashing echoes from within. The king is sent flying by a powerful strike, cursing the masked rebel. He retaliates with a fierce slash of his own. The king screams in frustration, questioning why the rebel only dodges and demanding he fight back. The masked rebel remarks on his inability to land a wound and demands King Janwol hand over the royal heirloom. The king furiously refuses to surrender Shinwol's sacred treasure. The masked man lunges forward with a powerful attack. He moves with blinding speed. The king's eyes widen in shock, realizing he's been cornered. A final, sharp clash of steel rings out. A powerful blow sends sparks flying through the air. The king falls as Hyosung arrives just in time to witness it. Hyosung stands ready for battle, her expression grim. She urges the king to retreat, but he refuses to leave a woman to fight in his place. She glares back, bluntly telling him he is in the way. She orders him to leave immediately, and he reluctantly turns to go. The masked rebel watches her approach, his sword at the ready. With a smirk and glowing red eyes, she challenges him to raise his sword again. She leaps into the air, bringing her sword down in a powerful overhead strike. The rebel looks up, surprised by her aggressive attack. She kicks off a pillar, launching herself forward. She follows up with a swift, flying kick. Clang! She blocks his counterattack with her blade. Behind her determined eyes, she notes this is their second encounter. She deftly dodges a sweeping slash from his sword. She clenches her fist, preparing her next move. He stumbles backward, covering his face where she struck him. She charges again, vowing to cut his mask off for sure. Her foot slides across the floor as she lunges forward. A hint of a smile plays on the rebel's lips from behind his mask. He stomps his foot, stopping her charge in its tracks. Their swords lock as she stares at him with wide, determined eyes. He effortlessly catches her wrist, halting her attack completely. He holds her still, his masked face inches from hers. She screams at him, demanding to know why he isn't fighting seriously. He coldly tells her to get lost, stating he has no business with a Shinwol soldier. She yells back defiantly, declaring that she came here to face him. The rebel leader pauses, silently asking her why. Grabbing her hair, he demands to know if she's aware of the truth about the incident 10 years ago. He questions why a mere soldier would be interested, claiming she shouldn't have any connection to it. Her shadow falls across the floor as she asks, "What if I told you I do?" He reveals that everything from 10 years ago, the fire, the former king's fate, was all part of a plan. Her eyes widen in stunned disbelief as she processes his words. Grabbing his arm, she furiously demands he tell her who is responsible. The masked figure states cryptically that no fool reveals all their secrets to the enemy. Adjusting a cuff, the masked person refuses to say anything more. Feet pound against the stone path as the figure makes a swift escape. The purple-haired woman reaches out in alarm as palace guards move to intercept the fleeing rebel. She watches them run, annoyed at how fast the rebel is. An arrow suddenly whistles past her face. Her eyes widen as a fresh, bleeding cut appears on her cheek. An archer aims his bow, shouting that the rebels have been running wild since her arrival. He furiously accuses her of helping them, as an arrow is shown embedded in a nearby column. Surrounded by guards, the purple-haired woman is warned that while the Grand Prince may favor her, she will receive no mercy. She furiously retorts that she was the one fighting rebels and protecting the king long before he showed up. The enraged archer screams at her not to move and to surrender if she values her life. A commanding voice from off-screen bellows for them to stop immediately. The young king storms into the courtyard with his entourage, angrily demanding. He furiously orders the archer to lower his bow, declaring that the woman saved him. The purple-haired woman looks on, surprised by the king's sudden defense of her. The archer protests, insisting to the king that she is a rebel sympathizer. The king glares icily at the soldier, who begins to stammer nervously. Stepping in front of the purple-haired woman, the king scolds her for trying to face the rebel leader alone. He smiles warmly, thanking her for saving him and promising a great reward for her bravery. She looks down, flustered, and quietly declines his offer. The king encourages her to think carefully, urging her to ask for anything she desires. He says he will remember her name is Hyoseong, causing her to look up with a start. A memory flashes of a faceless young man reaching out his hand, calling the name Manhwa. Hyoseong's eyes widen in dawning recognition. Her mind races, identifying the man from her past as the crown prince. The realization hits her like a physical blow as she thinks, "I remember now." She turns and runs, panicking and questioning why she didn't recognize him until this moment. As she flees down the corridor, she curses the timing of her recovered memory. Her expression is a mixture of panic and determination as she runs. She recalls a memory of the young prince holding her hand as they walked together on a hill. In the memory, a younger Yeonhwa stands before him with a shy expression. She looks up as he mentions the upcoming palace banquet. The young prince smiles warmly, inviting Yeonhwa to attend the banquet with him. Back in the present, Hyo-seung clutches her. She tries to calm herself, dismissing the old feelings as a mere shock from the sudden memory. Gritting her teeth, she despairs at the complication after everything she has done to get this far. In her haste, she collides with the blind prince, Daegun. Startled, she looks up and addresses him as the Grand Prince. Hazel rushes over in a panic, pointing out the scratch on Hyo-seung's cheek and asking if she was hurt fighting the rebels. Insisting Hyo-seung stay put, Hazel hurries off to fetch some ointment for the wound. Prince Daegun asks if the wound is serious, but Hyo-seung dismisses it as nothing. Her eyes burn with hatred as she thinks that he ruined her life, stealing her chance at a peaceful existence with her family and the king. Noting that they are alone, she tells him their deal is off and that nothing matters anymore. Her hand moves to the hilt of her sword as she declares her intent to kill him. The prince begins to speak, his expression unreadable. He remarks that this is the same day the incident happened 10 years ago, a day he can't forget. He approaches her, stating that he heard she saved his majesty. He thanks her for her actions, causing her to freeze in place, her resolve faltering. He acknowledges her skill with the sword, telling her she has done well as a royal guard. Hyo-seung declares she's an assassin whose only goal is to kill him. He wistfully wonders if things would have been different if she'd been there on that day. His words leave her completely stunned. A single tear falls as he thinks of his father. She grips her dagger, questioning her own hesitation to strike him down. Frustrated, she yells that her entire purpose in coming here was to kill him. Her expression is a mask of anguish and inner conflict. His composure breaks as tears stream down his face. She flees, her own thoughts, turning to her longing for her father. His eyes overflow with a deep. She turns her back on him and runs. Her hand trembles as she grips her weapon. She finally sheathes her dagger, abandoning her mission. He watches her go, his expression filled with sadness. She stands with a newfound, yet complicated, resolve. A promotional image shows the two protagonists in a close, poignant embrace. She closes her eyes, a pained memory surfacing. In a memory, a younger version of herself pleads not to be left alone, crying that she misses someone. He reveals his own pain, admitting he hasn't seen his father in 10 years either. She clenches her fist, admitting she doesn't even know if her own father is alive. She's instantly flustered, wondering why she revealed so much to her enemy. His hand gently reaches for her. He cups her face, offering a silent comfort. Her eye widens in shock at his sudden, gentle touch. She looks up at him, startled and questioning his actions. She turns away, burying her face against him while denying that she's crying. He closes his eyes, telling her he can imagine how much she has suffered. She looks away, blushing as she dismisses his attempt at empathy. He offers to help her find her father, asking what kind of man he is. Her thoughts reveal her confusion. It feels strange to be comforted by her sworn enemy. She reflects that the sword she once drew so easily now feels impossibly heavy. The scene shifts to her room, where she stands in a simple white robe. She questions her decision to come to the palace, feeling she has grown weak. A conflicting thought begins to form in her mind. She realizes she can't suddenly deny the hatred she's held for so long. Creak! A door opens as she makes a decision. She decides to borrow a set of clothes from someone named Yulmu. Nearby, a brown-haired woman sleeps soundly, unaware of the theft. Now disguised as a court lady, she hurries through the palace grounds. She steals her resolve, determined to find information about her father. Nearby, court ladies gossip about the rebels' creepy masks during the previous night's attack. Overhearing that the rebels didn't kill anyone, she realizes the court ladies know nothing and decides to question officials instead. A panicked court lady runs out, asking Yuluji why she isn't dressed and crying that her clothes are gone. Hyo-seung hurries away in her stolen disguise. A man in blue robes asks his green-robed guard for a brief favor, which the guard accepts. As they walk, the blue-robed man asks his guard, Haesol, who he is searching for, but Haesol deflects the question. Hyo-seung slips away unnoticed, chiding herself for being careless. She freezes, hearing the sound of their footsteps growing closer. The two men arrive at a meeting room, noting the open door and assuming others are already inside. They enter the room, only to find it completely empty. One of the men speculates that perhaps the door wasn't closed properly. Panicked, Hyo-seung realizes she's trapped as they approach the room. Several officials in formal robes ascend a staircase, heading to a meeting. Inside, an older minister greets the Grand Prince, who has just arrived. The minister questions why Lord Haesol is present instead of the Grand Prince's usual bodyguard. The Grand Prince explains he let his guard rest as she was injured during the rebel raid. Another minister, Minister Go, praises the guard's bravery in rescuing the king. Minister Jang counters, accusing her of neglecting her duty to the Grand Prince, earning a rebuke from his peer. He continues his complaint, questioning the wisdom of keeping a guard who couldn't even maintain her post. As the Grand Prince listens impassively, Minister Jang advises him not to trust the guard. From her hiding spot, Hyosung suggests using soldiers from the Shinue kingdom as escorts. The Grand Prince rejects the idea, stating he is not from Shinue. He coolly declares that he trusts no one, so the identity of his guard is irrelevant. Hearing this, a dejected Hyosung quietly apologizes to herself. The king arrives at the meeting room with his attendants. Announcing they are slightly late, the king formally begins the meeting. An official reports that they lost the rebels after pursuing them but did discover their infiltration point. The king concludes that this means a rebel spy may be operating within the palace. An older minister reports that the rebels mentioned the incident from 10 years ago, noting their timing and interest in the heirloom are suspicious. Overhearing that the records from 10 years ago are missing, Hyosung is shocked, believing everything should have been recorded. The king requests access to the secure Byeoljin archives, as the public archives were empty. Russell. The king turns, having heard a noise from behind a nearby screen where Hyosung is hiding. He wonders aloud who could have defaced the books, his expression sharp and suspicious. Hyosung smiles with quiet confidence, thinking that some records may yet remain. The king's gaze lingers on the screen, a bead of sweat on his face as he processes the situation. Suddenly, the king clutches his head in apparent pain, as a concerned attendant asks if he is unwell. The Grand Prince and Haesol look on in alarm as the king complains of sudden dizziness. An official postpones the meeting due to the king's condition and dismisses everyone. The attendant expresses concern, but the king firmly tells him to leave. Clutching his head, the king explains that thoughts of his father saddened him and asks for a moment alone. The attendant weeps but agrees, promising they will take their leave. The attendant exits the room, sobbing as he closes the doors. Now alone, the king sits at the head of the table, his face buried in his hand. He suddenly looks toward the screen and calls out Hyosung's name, revealing he knew she was there. Kneeling before her, he asks why she's dressed as a court lady. The king observes her thoughtfully, waiting for an explanation. Hyosung lowers her head and apologizes for disrupting the meeting. He tells her it's all right, but she insists that even daily meetings are important. He watches her intently as she questions his casual dismissal of his duties. He smiles wistfully, remarking that she sounds just like a child he once knew. Standing up, he tells her they should leave before the court attendant returns. The attendant peeks back into the room, asking if His Majesty has calmed down. He enters to resume the meeting, but finds the room completely empty. From the courtyard, the attendant shouts in frustration, realizing the king tricked him again. The king strolls with Hyosung, grinning as he points out the attendant's arrival. She hurries after him, insisting he shouldn't be out here and must return. He leads her away, walking briskly through the palace grounds. She follows him, a single thought forming in her mind, that's right. A memory surfaces of her younger self chasing the prince, scolding him for not finishing his studies. In the memory, the young prince with glowing purple eyes grins, saying playing with her is better. She smiles fondly, thinking that he used to run away often and hasn't changed at all. The king looks back at her over his shoulder, his expression unreadable. He stops, telling her that since she's come this far, she should be fine on her own. He turns to her with a smile, admitting he'd like to spend more time with her. In the distance, the attendant runs through the courtyard, desperately calling for His Majesty. The king points her in a different direction, questioning why she'd want to be with someone like him. He advises her to go around the Gyeongsan archives to avoid being caught. He smiles warmly and says he'll see her again, and she thanks him for his help. She tells him to take care, and he calmly agrees. As the king walks away, the attendant's frantic voice echoes through the corridor, asking where he is. Standing alone, Hyosung listens as the king announces his presence to court attendant Jo, who expresses his relief. The scene shifts to the imposing Gyeongsan archives at night. Creak! The doors to the archives swing open into the darkness. Thump! Hyosung secures the door from the inside, plunging the room into shadow. She notes the archives are empty, seeing this as her chance to investigate her father. She begins her search, looking through the books on a nearby table. Her eyes widen in disbelief as she reads through one of the records. She discovers there isn't a single record about her father from 10 years ago. Only smudged, illegible pages. Wham! She slams the book down in fury, realizing that someone is purposefully hiding the truth. She deduces that these books are copies and that she must go to the original Byeoljin archives to find out what was torn from the records and what is being hidden. She wonders if something besides the king's death happened 10 years ago, just as a door creaks open. A shadowy figure appears in the brightly lit doorway. Hyosung hides behind a pillar, shocked as two figures enter the room she was certain was empty. Peeking out, she strains to listen, wondering what they are saying. The two silhouettes converse quietly amongst the towering bookshelves. One of the figures warns that mistakes will not be tolerated, while the other confirms that everything is already prepared. Hyosung is horrified to overhear an order to assassinate Grand Prince Yunwoo during tomorrow's procession. Kill only the prince. The second conspirator confirms the plan. He will shoot the prince from within the crowd at the village, needing only one shot. One of the plotters urges they leave quickly before their absence raises suspicion. Creak! The conspirators exit, leaving the door slightly ajar. Hyosung emerges from her hiding place, disturbed by a familiar voice she can't place, and knowing it would be a disaster to lose the prince now. Later, the door to her quarters slides open. On a table sits a neatly folded set of clothes and a small wrapped box. Hazel finds her in the courtyard and asks if she's feeling better, but she urgently asks if the prince is having a procession tomorrow. He smiles, confirming her suspicion and asking how she knew. She warns him that someone inside the palace is aiming for the prince's life and demands he cancel the procession. When he questions her, she reveals that she heard the assassins placed a mark on the prince's palanquin. Alarmed, Hazel declares he'll go check on it right away and rushes off. A pair of large wooden doors swing open, revealing the courtyard beyond. Hazel walks with purpose across the stone courtyard at night. He returns to report that he checked but found nothing unusual, explaining they prepare several palanquins, and he couldn't find any marks. Unconvinced, Hyosung tries to go see for herself, but Hazel stops her, insisting they cannot reveal which palanquin the prince will use. She flares up, angrily asking if he doesn't trust her, and insisting the prince is in immediate danger. He calmly states that he trusts Lady Hyosung, which is precisely why he wants to eliminate even a sliver of doubt. He reassures her that there are no marks, and he will stand watch all night, and she seems to relent. The next day, she observes the two palanquins being prepared, confirming for herself that there are no visible markings. The Grand Prince appears before her, announcing his presence. He tells her Hisal informed him of the situation, but reassures her they have plenty of soldiers, though she remains worried. He smiles, adding that her presence is the greatest reassurance, leaving her momentarily speechless. The Grand Prince stands with Hyosung, asking where the palanquin is. Pointing the way, he takes her by the wrist and leads her forward. Hyosung looks back, a bead of sweat on her cheek, clearly flustered by his touch. He apologizes, explaining that with so many eyes on them, this is for the best. Their hands remain clasped together as he leads her on. He looks at her intently, suggesting they take a different route. She agrees, and they walk together, surrounded by their escort. The king appears, calling Hyosung's name and reassigning her to his procession, stating the Grand General will guard the prince instead. He introduces Shinwolguk's highest-ranking general, assuring her not to worry. Hyosung bows and firmly rejects his order. An attendant scolds her for defying the king's command and demands she obey immediately. As she looks down, the Grand Prince leans in, giving her a final instruction. He gently lets go of her hand, their fingers lingering for a moment. She looks up with quiet resolve, having made her decision. With a determined expression, Hyosung turns to face her new duty. The Grand Prince tells her to go to the king, reassuring her that he will be fine. She stands alone for a moment before the imposing palace gate. The scene shifts to a peaceful, sun-dappled path winding through a forest. A large royal procession with multiple palanquins travels along the forest path. Inside his palanquin, the king gently chides Hyosung for her nervousness, asking what worries her. She thinks to herself that they must pass through the small village quickly, and that without the assassin's mark, there should be no opportunity for an attack. The procession continues its journey through the woods. Hyosung walks alongside the king's palanquin, her gaze watchful. She suddenly turns her head, her expression sharp, as if sensing something amiss. A bright glint of light from above catches her eye, forcing her to squint. The glint comes from the roof of a different palanquin up ahead. Her eyes fly open in shock as she realizes what she is seeing. It's the mark, a tiny glass shard hidden in plain sight, and she knows she has to warn them immediately. As the procession nears the village entrance, she realizes her time is running out. Wah! She draws her sword and desperately shouts for the prince. At the village entrance, a crowd cheers, hailing King Jonwoo. Hyosung frantically tries to get the guards' attention, demanding they stop the procession at once. The king calmly asks why she is shouting and tells her to stay in formation, but she grabs his arm, pleading for him to stop. As she begins to explain the prince's danger, a bright glint flashes from within the cheering crowd. She whips her head around, her eyes locking onto the source of the light. Her mind races as she confirms her worst fear. They're targeting the palanquin. With wide, horrified eyes, she cries out a desperate no. Wham! The king suddenly pulls her back from the palanquin's open window. He reaches out with a look of shock, having just saved her. An arrow flies past as she swings her sword in a swift, defensive arc. Her blade slices the incoming arrow clean in two. She shouts that it's an ambush and to protect the prince, as another archer takes aim. Her gaze hardens as she spots the attacker among the chaos. An arrow finds its mark, striking a guard in the neck. URK, more guards fall as a volley of arrows rains down upon them. A palanquin bearer screams as he is struck down by an arrow. Ugh! Thrown by the sudden stop, the Grand Prince falls forward inside his palanquin. Hyosung realizes the attackers were hiding among the villagers, just as the crowd screams in panic. She grabs a bow from a fallen guard, deflecting an arrow shaft with it. Without hesitation, she draws the bow, taking aim at the hidden assassins. Arrows fly through the air toward their targets. Ah! One of the cloaked assassins is struck down as his partner curses and orders them to move to the next plan. He quickly prepares several small, round bombs. The bombs sail through the air, trailing smoke. Hyosung watches as the projectiles head for the procession. A cloud of smoke envelops the royal palanquins as a voice shouts to protect the king and prince. Within the thick smoke, a sword blade gleams. Hyosung stands ready, desperately calling out for the prince to respond. She spots two figures escaping through the smoke and calls the prince's name again. Her eyes narrow in fury, and she vows to take down her enemies. She powerfully kicks off the ground to give chase. She leaps through the smoke-filled air. An assassin draws his bow, saying he knew she would follow. Hyosung is shocked as an arrow flies directly at her face. She grits her teeth as the arrowhead nearly touches her cheek. With a curse, she reacts in a flash. Twisting in midair, she slices the arrow in half, but is wounded in the process. The assassin threatens to finish her, but his companion shouts that they have secured the royal family and must leave. He insists on dealing with Hyosung first, but his partner warns that the soldiers will be there soon. Hyosung lands on her feet, clutching her bleeding shoulder. She gives a chilling smile, warning them there's no escape once she's marked her prey. A hand slams down on a nearby desk. A guard bursts into a room, urgently reporting to Lord Hazel. Hazel looks up from his work, asking what is going on. The guard reports that the king briefly lost consciousness, but is now safe. He continues, revealing that Hyosung is missing, and no one knows where she is. Panicked, Hazel bursts through a door, shouting for the Grand Duke. He finds the Grand Duke in a dungeon and asks what happened, questioning if he truly doesn't know where the Grand Prince is. Hazel angrily grabs the Grand Duke, demanding to know why troops haven't been dispatched, but is told to calm down. The Grand Duke explains that a blind search is useless, and that interrogating their captured assassin is the fastest way to find the prince. Enraged, Hazel grabs the beaten prisoner, demanding to know what he did with the prince. As Hazel screams for him to speak, the Grand Duke notes that torture has been ineffective so far. The Grand Duke steps in, telling Lord Hazel that he will handle the interrogation himself. He places several branding irons into a brazier, stating that they are now hot enough. A scream echoes as Hazel looks on in shock, while the Grand Duke calmly repeats his question. Hazel flinches as another piercing scream fills the dungeon. Ugh! Looking distressed, Hazel watches as the Grand Duke vows not to stop until the prisoner talks. The glowing hot poker is pressed into the prisoner's flesh. The assassin screams in agony, begging them to stop. Under renewed questioning, the broken assassin finally reveals the prince is being held in a small house near Chilsean Mountain Village. When asked why he kidnapped the prince, the man confesses they were hired to do it. He admits their orders were to kill everyone in the marked palanquin, as the Grand Duke demands to know who hired them. The prisoner suddenly goes limp before he can answer. An attendant arrives, summoning the Grand Duke to the newly awakened king, but he insists on finishing the confession. The attendant looks on, his expression filled with panic and urgency. The Grand Duke instructs Hazel to guard the prisoner until he returns, and Hazel agrees. He turns and walks out of the dungeon cell. The attendant follows the Grand Duke up the stone stairs. Left alone, the captured assassin thinks to himself that he was only following orders. He admits the reward for targeting royalty was too tempting, and reveals the one who hired them was from inside the palace. The captured assassin says he is unsure of the details. He shouts that others are after the Grand Prince, claiming he would have died anyway. Arr! Blood splatters as the assassin screams in pain. 3 court ladies listen from a doorway as a voice roars, "I've had enough of this." The king clutches his head in fury, demanding to know what his guard was doing, unable to protect even one royal. As an attendant begs his majesty to calm down, the Grand Duke arrives. The king confronts the Grand Duke, furiously asking how he could fail to protect Yunwol, while the Grand Duke offers his sincere apology. Screaming with rage, the king warns the Grand Duke that he will never be forgiven if anything happens to his brother. The Grand Duke solemnly vows to bring the Grand Prince back without fail, promising not to make the same mistake again. The king breaks down, crying that the prince is his only brother. Sniff. As the king nearly collapses, the Grand Duke reassures him that he will find the prince and urges him to care for his health. Shards of a broken vessel lie scattered across the floor. With tears of rage in his eyes, the king threatens to have the Grand Duke's limbs torn off and displayed if Yunwol is not safe. The king orders him out of his sight, and the Grand Duke formally takes his leave. The Grand Duke walks with purpose through the palace courtyard. He pauses, his expression filled Lord Hazel appears, stating he'll go to the prison as well, but the Grand Duke advises him against it. Ascending the steps, the Grand Duke tells Hazel to assure His Majesty that the Grand Prince will be found. He turns to Court Attendant Cho, dismissing him, and declaring his intent to hear the criminal's confession himself. The Grand Duke's expression hardens as he prepares to enter the dungeon. Inside, Hazel stands over the captured assassin, who is slumped over in his chair. The Grand Duke bursts in, demanding to know what happened and why the criminal is in that state. Hazel turns in alarm, explaining he was called out briefly by a soldier. He reveals the shocking outcome. The prisoner was dead. Hazel explains a soldier came with news of the Grand Prince, so he stepped outside to prevent the prisoner from overhearing. The Grand Duke concludes it was suicide and decides to take troops to the location they were given. Hazel grabs him, arguing it couldn't have been suicide since the man confessed, and questions how he died if no one entered, blaming the Grand Duke for leaving him alone. He begins to explain that he was waiting for the Grand Duke, but Court Attendant Cho. In a flashback, Hazel recalls that he was guarding the criminal and planned to go find help after the Grand Duke arrived. Court Attendant Cho offered to watch the prisoner so Hazel could go. The attendant stands with a calm, unreadable expression. The truth is revealed as Court Attendant Cho holds a bloody finger to his lips, silencing the secret. Hazel looks back, a new resolve hardening his features. A wooden cart rattles down a dirt road. One kidnapper curses that a general captured their accomplice, but the other dismisses it, assuming he's already dead. They have captured the royal, Prince Dagon, who lies unconscious and bound in the cart, believing the job is done. One asks why they didn't kill the prince, and his partner reveals the client changed the plan, instructing them to simply drop him off. The driver complains about the last-minute change, but accepted the double pay from the client, who he identified as a court attendant from Shinwol. He muses on the amount of money it must have taken for the attendant to take such a risk. He concludes their job will be over once they drop the prince at the specified location. And the cart speeds up. A foot lands hard on the ground nearby. Alerted by the sound, the driver looks over his shoulder. Whoosh! Hyeseong soars through the air, closing in on the speeding cart. Gurg. Jang! Her blade meets the kidnappers in a shower of sparks. The two swords remain locked in a powerful clash. The kidnapper recognizes her, angrily vowing that he should have killed her earlier. Keeping pace with the cart, Hyeseong demands they give up and release the Grand Prince. The cloaked kidnapper readies his blade for another strike. She leaps onto the cart, confronting him directly as he scoffs at her. The second kidnapper thinks to himself, realizing that fighting her is a complication, and that he could take the entire reward if he just escapes with the prince himself. With a powerful slash, she strikes the side of the wooden cart. Her eyes glow red with fierce determination. An assassin curses her interference as she gives chase on horseback. Ugh, the horse rears, throwing her to the ground. She curses as the cart pulls away from her. The assassin mocks her for foolishly trying to cut them off on a downhill slope. One of the kidnappers panics, questioning why his partner stopped the cart. With a furious cry, her sword strikes the cart's wheel. The blade slices deep into the wooden spokes. The kidnapper stares in wide-eyed shock at her impossible feat. The wheel shatters and breaks away from the axle. Ugh, the violent jolt from the crash awakens the Grand Prince. Hyeseong desperately screams for him to open his eyes. Hearing her voice, the dazed prince weakly asks where he is. She urgently informs him that he's been kidnapped and must stay conscious. He looks down, realizing his body is bound and he can't move. Hyeseong leaps away, shouting for the prince to jump from the careening carriage. Damn! The kidnapper grabs the prince, ordering him to stay still. He tries to force the prince down, telling him to lie still until they arrive. The prince drives his foot back into his captor's leg. Whoa! With a powerful kick, the prince sends the kidnapper flying from the cart. The man tumbles helplessly through the air. Hyeseong stares in stunned disbelief at the prince's... She cries out in alarm, realizing the cart is heading straight for a cliff. Sprinting toward the cliff's edge, she screams for him to jump if he wants to live. The prince notices the cart is picking up speed as it nears the edge. Damn it. Hyeseong realizes with horror that there's no time left. He turns to her as she screams that she will catch him, pleading for him to jump now. The wooden cart soars off the cliff's edge and into the open air. The scene shifts to a peaceful clearing below. Hyeseong catches the prince, thinking to herself that he's heavier than she thought. Held tightly in her embrace, his eyes are wide with shock. She smiles with relief, whispering, "See, I caught you." As she helps him up, he quietly thanks her. She suddenly stumbles, the pain from her wound flaring up. The prince notes the impact worsened her injury, warning she can't fight and that they must return to the palace before more assassins arrive. He turns his back to her, a look of sorrow on his face. He expresses his deep regret, wishing he had trusted her from the start. He continues, saying if he had just listened to her, the soldiers and court ladies wouldn't have died. She listens quietly to his pained confession. Turning toward the palace, she urges him to return, reminding him that everyone is waiting for him. He bitterly suggests no one is waiting for him at the palace, prompting her to ask how he could say such a thing. She recalls the fire at Shinwol's shrine 10 years ago, explaining that her father became trapped inside because she entered first. The prince admits that since that day, everyone has blamed him, and he believes even King Janwol, who comforted him, must have truly resented him. He concludes that people always suffer because of him and nullifies their deal, telling her to leave before she gets hurt too. After a moment of thought, she looks at him with resolve and refuses. She reminds him he must keep his word to grant her a wish for protecting him, asking if he knows the hell she's been through for that promise. He warns her that the danger will only grow, but she scoffs at his concern, declaring that she won't die and isn't scared by something like this. Smiling confidently, she says they should hurry back before any lurking assassins find them. He reaches out and gently takes her hand in his. The prince's white robe flows as he walks. Hyoseong supports the weakened prince as they move through the woods. Tap. The prince stops, calling her name Hyoseong. He calmly asks what it is she desires from him. Looking at her intently, he questions what makes her want to stay by his side. She remains silent, her expression unreadable. Turning away, she says she cannot tell him yet. With a pained look, she wonders how he could even ask such a thing. The prince looks down, assuring her he would still grant her wish. He asks her to be his real bodyguard, not as part of a deal, but as a genuine wish. Hyoseong turns back, stunned by his heartfelt request. In a flashback, she remembers the wound she took, thinking how she risked injury for him. A memory of palace flags surfaces as a voice commands, remember this. A female general on horseback orders her troops to protect Yunwol Daegun at all costs. The general advises Lord Seo to follow from a distance, and he acknowledges the order. Lord Seo watches with a serious, determined gaze. Returning to the present, Hyoseong eyes a group of soldiers, recognizing one of them. She recalls he was the soldier who delivered news about the prince from the prison. A group of 4 soldiers patrols a path through the woods. As they spot the soldiers of Shinwol, Hyoseong tells the prince the atmosphere feels wrong. She clutches her wound, questioning why the 5 soldiers are searching around so suspiciously. A blade pokes through the leaves as she wonders if they are the target. A soldier's boot steps forward, halting their search. Hyoseong narrows her eyes, a flicker of suspicion crossing her face. Whoosh! She bursts from the foliage, sword drawn in a swift attack. A soldier demands she sheathe her sword, reminding her she stands before Yunwol Daegun. The prince suggests talking to them, but Hyoseong fiercely asks if they wish to die. The soldier scoffs that they are the ones who will die, pointing out they are alone. The prince's expression hardens as he recognizes the voice of Park Hwan-soo, son of Guard Park. With her eyes glowing red, Hyoseong demands to know why they want to kill the prince. Park Hwan-soo taunts Daegun, asking if he remembers the day the late king died. Hyoseong recalls the prince once saying he knew the cause of the accident 10 years ago. Shielding him, she tells him his amnesia is the only thing that has kept him alive. Park Hwan-soo reveals their mission, to kill the prince before he regains his memories. Hyoseong grabs the prince, demanding to know what secret he holds. He stares back intensely, questioning if she is merely pretending not to know. A blade flashes in the sunlight, signaling impending violence. Park Hwan-soo orders his men to seize Hyoseong. With a final, chilling command, he orders them to kill the Daegun. He smirks, telling Hyoseong she will be framed as the attacker. Her eyes burn with crimson fury as she prepares for battle. The prince calls her name and asks for a sword to fight alongside her. No, she declares, insisting that she alone will handle this fight. She launches herself into the fray, a whirlwind of deadly grace. With a powerful slash, she cuts down her first opponent. Her attack continues in a seamless, deadly arc. She lands perfectly on one hand, using the momentum to pivot. In a low sweep, she fells another soldier with a powerful kick and slash. Blood splatters across her side from the brutal counterattack. She groans as an enemy lands a kick directly on her old wound. A soldier scoffs that she won't be smug for long as he lunges. He brings his sword down in a powerful overhead strike. His blade slices deep into her leg. Ha! Hyoseong cries out, her eyes wide with pain as she clutches her wounded leg. Wounded, she struggles to stay upright as her opponent looms over her. The soldier orders his man to kill Daegun while he deals with her. She calls him a coward. The prince shouts her name, Hyoseong, and orders the men to stop. He tells the wounded Hyoseong he won't kill her now if she stays still. He tells her she'll be executed at the palace, but Daegun must die here. His eyes glint with cold resolve as he gives the order to kill the prince. A soldier carries the unconscious Hyoseong away, as his partner mocks the blind prince. Sure, he won't survive. Park Hwan-soo smirks, suggesting they just abandon Dagon to his fate. Dagon explodes into action, slamming his fist into the soldier's face. In a flash, he seizes the hilt of the soldier's sword. He kicks the soldier back, wrenching the weapon free. The soldiers are stunned by the blind man's skill, wondering if he has a death wish. Dagon offers his final mercy. They can live if they confess their crimes. They curse him, yelling to kill him, and mocking his chances against them both. He tightens his grip on the stolen sword, ready for battle. In a flashback, a younger Dagon feels the weight of a sword as his master asks if it's dangerous. His master explains that he will need the sword one day and vows to train him to wield it perfectly despite his blindness. The young prince wonders if it's truly possible for him to cut someone down. His master's voice echoes from the past, telling him to remember this lesson. Back in the present, Dagon unleashes a blindingly fast sword dance. "You will be cut down," he declares. In a single, fluid motion, his blade fells both attackers. The last soldier stares in disbelief, shocked by his speed and power. Guk! The prince delivers a final, fatal blow. He glances out from behind a tree, his expression grim and focused. His hand rests on the hilt of his blood-splattered sword. More assassins appear from the forest, shouting for his death. He calmly notes that, as he suspected, more were hiding. A young man with light brown hair arrives, leading a troop of soldiers. He scans the woods, a look of focused determination on his face. He thinks to himself that the soldiers he saw earlier seemed suspicious. He wonders who gave them secret orders to leave the palace. Realizing only Lord Seo's men were supposed to be out, he hurries forward. A shot of foliage shows blood dripping from the leaves. The young man, Haesol, recoils at the pungent smell of blood. Following the scent, he discovers Dagon standing amid the bodies of his attackers. Haesol rushes to his side, relieved he's safe but alarmed by the blood on his robes. He asks if Dagon is all right, but the prince urgently says his name, Haesol, telling him there's no time. In the throne room, Park Hwan-soo reports they've captured the attacker as Hyoseong is thrown before the king. He accuses her of being the mastermind behind the ambush, claiming an assassin confessed. King Janwol looks down from his throne, questioning if Hyoseong is truly the one behind it all. Lord Seo stands by silently, his expression unreadable. Park Hwan-soo demands the king execute the traitor, declaring her entire family should be exterminated for her crime. Two court officials gossip, agreeing that she always seemed suspicious since her sudden appearance. But Lord Go steps in, stating she is not guilty, and that there's another hand at play, as she risked her life to save Dagon. He tells the other officials to be quiet and observe, even as they insist she must be the culprit. Lord Gao admonishes them, stating they've only heard a soldier's words, and the truth is not yet revealed. A battered Hyoseong bursts in, screaming to the king that Dagon is alive, and begging him to send rescue soldiers. A large bloodstain darkens the side of her pink robes. She points at Park Hwan-soo, accusing him of being the would-be assassin, and pleading with the king to believe her before it's too late. King Janwol watches her, thinking her name Hyoseong, and noting how she clings to consciousness despite bleeding so heavily. As she stares with fierce determination, he realizes she is worried for Dagon. The king concludes that her concern isn't for herself, but for Yunwol. Park Hwan-soo interjects, calling her a liar, and demanding she be severely punished for the royal family's safety. Tap. As a footstep echoes, he continues his plea, invoking the memory of the unjustly slain Dagon. The court officials gasp in shock at the sudden development. Another footstep sounds on the tiled floor. Dagon appears, his robes stained with blood, and coldly tells Park Hwan-soo that he speaks nonsense well. Stunned to see him alive, Park Hwan-soo stammers his name as Dagon asks, "Do I look dead to you?" Dagon confronts the trembling official, asking why he is silent now, after being so bold when trying to kill him. He reveals that the soldiers survived and will confess everything, exposing the assassination plot. Park Hwan-soo drops to his knees, begging for his life and claiming he acted out of a momentary lapse in judgment. Bowing his head, he frantically thinks that telling the truth might be his only way to survive. But fear grips him as he realizes confessing means eunuch Kim will surely have his mother and sister killed. Dagon orders the guards to seize the man and uncover the mastermind. Dragged away, Park Hwan-soo screams for mercy, insisting he is innocent. Dagon stands silently, sweat beading on his brow as he begins to sway. King Janwol expresses his relief and orders Dagon to see the royal physician immediately, promising to handle the rest. As Haesol offers to help her, Hyoseong insists she can walk on her own. She takes a single faltering step. Oof! She collapses forward, but Dagon catches her in his arms. From his throne, King Janwol observes the scene with a pensive look. Holding Hyoseong close, Dagon issues a veiled threat to whoever is listening. His eyes narrow with cold resolve as he vows he will not remain still if they are targeted again. The court officials watch silently as the two prepare to leave. Supporting Hyoseong, Dagon walks out of the throne room. Outside, Hyoseong looks up at him with concern, asking if he is all right. He suddenly crumples, pulling her down as she cries out his name in alarm. Leaning heavily against her, he grits his teeth and tells her to be quiet. Haesol rushes to their side, frustrated that Dagon ignored his advice, while Hyoseong asks what's wrong. Haesol explains that Dagon suffered an abdominal wound and only stopped the bleeding briefly before rushing to the palace. He tells a shocked Hyoseong that Dagon came because he heard she was in danger, and now he must call the physician. Hyoseong gently helps the prince, urging him to lean on her. As he groans in pain, she realizes he risked his life because he feared she would be executed on false charges. His voice is barely a whisper as he says her name. Startled, she asks what he said, and if his wound is hurting badly. He looks at her with relief and tenderness, murmuring that he's just glad she's safe. Hyoseong turns away, her expression softening with emotion. Flustered, she scolds him for worrying about her when he can't even stand properly. She thinks back to him running to save her, drenched in a cold sweat. Overwhelmed, she wonders why he would go to such lengths for her when he doesn't even know who she is. Dagon smiles faintly, a single tear rolling down his cheek. They sit together on the steps as sunlight streams down. As promised, Haesol quickly brought the royal physician to the palace. The physician carefully examines a gruesome, stitched-up wound on Dagon's abdomen. Inside a quiet room, a clean bandage is prepared for the prince's wound. Hyoseong winces, realizing her leg wound has opened again. The scene shifts to a long, ornate palace hallway. Kiak, a young woman, bursts in, panicking at the sight of blood, as Hyoseong asks why she barged in. The young woman expresses her concern, asking why the royal physician isn't treating Dagon's guard. Hyoseong explains they only treat royals. She insists on finding treatment, declaring she knows someone who can help. As they walk, the young woman explains that court staff must seek medical care outside, but someone secretly provides medicine within the palace. She knocks on a wooden gate. Whispering to see if anyone is there, she prompts Hyoseong to think that stealing palace medicine is a bold move. The door slides open as the young woman cheerfully greets Jang Daegum. A man in purple robes appears, asking Yulji why she's here. She nervously explains her friend is very sick. He quickly ushers them inside. Inside, Yulji asks Jang Daegum if he's working late again and offers to bring food, but he says there is much to do. He hands Hyoseong a wrapped bundle of medicine, instructing her on how to take it, as she wonders if he recognizes her. Jang Daegum sternly warns her not to act recklessly with such a severe wound, while Yulji marvels at the generous amount of medicine. Hyoseong holds the medicine, a look of quiet apprehension on her face. Later, wearing a red and black robe, Hyoseong walks through a palace courtyard. She pauses, lost in thought. The scene shows the traditional building she is approaching. She continues her pensive walk along the wall. Her footsteps echo quietly as she walks toward another person. Haesol appears beside her, startling her by asking if something is happening in Dagon's chambers. She stumbles back in surprise as he apologizes for startling her. He invites her to enter Dagon's chambers, but she flusteredly claims she was just passing by. A calm voice calls out her name, Hyoseong. Dagon appears, gently chiding her for walking on her injured leg when he told her to rest. Haesol looks on in disbelief as Hyoseong insists her leg doesn't hurt anymore. He then instructs Hyoseong to escort Dagon to the council hall, and she asks if he isn't joining them. Smiling, Haesol says he has a quick errand, but will join them before the council begins. He asks her to look after the prince, leaving her with an uncertain expression. As they walk, Dagon suddenly stops, and Hyoseong asks what's wrong. He looks down toward her, his expression unreadable. With a faint smile, he remarks that it seems he'll be late for the council meeting. Elsewhere, an attendant asks the king why he is rushing when the council is about to begin. The king replies with a serene smile that it will only take a moment. He thinks about a wrapped gift, certain it will help her recover quickly. Spotting Hyoseong in the distance, he thinks, there she is now. He watches her standing with Dagon near a gate. The king stops abruptly, and his attendant asks why he has paused. Looking toward Hyoseong, he silently wonders if she is well. He suddenly turns and walks away, leaving his confused attendants calling after him. The scene transitions to another empty palace courtyard. A guard confronts Jang Daegum, ordering him to stand aside, but the older man demands to know who dares stop him. The guards are instantly on their knees, begging for forgiveness. Bang, the doors to the throne room are thrown open. The king's grand entrance into the council hall is announced. He takes a moment to glance at the assembled officials. Dagon and Hyoseong bow their heads respectfully as he passes. Taking his seat on the throne, the king begins the council and hears that the conspirators killed themselves without confessing. The king orders their families seized, as Haesol stifles a yawn, thinking he should have stayed outside. Hyo-seong's eyes narrow slightly as she senses someone's gaze upon her. Two court officials huddle in fear, feeling an intense pressure not from each other. A thought bubble wonders who they could possibly be so afraid of sitting beside. The source of their fear is revealed, an imposing general with dark hair and intense red eyes. Hyo-seong glances over, unnerved as she wonders if the intimidating man is staring at her. A close-up on the general's face confirms his unwavering, cold gaze is fixed on her. Turning to Haesol, Hyo-seong quietly asks him to identify the mysterious general. She points in sudden recognition, exclaiming his title, Guigong General. Haesol panics, yanking her hand down and telling her not to point. The general is identified as Shinhyeol's second commander, the undefeated master of the Bako division. Visibly terrified, Haesol asks Hyo-seong what on earth she did to draw his attention. He confirms that the general is still staring intently at her. Engaging in a silent staring contest, Hyo-seong glares back as Haesol begs her to stop. A faint, almost imperceptible smirk appears on the general's face. Haesol frantically pulls her down, pleading with her to sit still while he's scared out of his mind. The sound of determined footsteps echoes through the hall. Daegan arrives at the council, bowing and apologizing to the king for his tardiness. He kneels and reports that after reconnaissance, he believes he has discovered the rebels' hideout. Bowing low, he formally requests permission to launch an attack the following day. The king grants Daegan leave to march, but suggests the Bako division should join the fight. Guigong General steps forward, explaining that his division is stationed at the Western Front and cannot easily join. The king proposes that Hyo-seong accompany the mission, as she could recognize the rebel leader. A memory of the masked rebel leader surfaces as Hyo-seong recalls her vow to face them again. Stepping forward beside a long-haired man, she firmly declares, "I'll go." An official justifies her participation, stating it is a guard's duty to protect Daegan. Daegan looks down at her with concern, questioning if she should go to war while still wounded. She acknowledges that it's reckless, but insists that she must meet them again. Her eyes burn with an unwavering and fierce determination. The other officials murmur their doubts, but concede that there is no other way. The king officially adjourns the meeting and orders the general to prepare for the subjugation. After the council, Daegan and Haesol walk down the stone steps of the palace. Seong stands defiantly, brushing off concerns and declaring that she is fine despite her injury. Guigong General approaches her with a severe and focused expression. He suddenly reaches out and grabs her wrist. In one swift motion, he pulls her toward him, catching her off guard. She struggles against his grip, angrily demanding to know what he is doing. Unfazed, he looks down at her and calmly asks for her name. She introduces herself as Hyo-seong, escort knight to Prince Yunwol, and demands his intentions. A sly, knowing smile spreads across his face as he finds her response amusing. Hyo-seong grows increasingly flustered under his unnerving stare. She panics internally, wondering if he knows her true identity, but dismissing it as impossible. As he continues his silent scrutiny, she considers the terrifying possibility that he might know her. A single bead of sweat rolls down her temple as her anxiety mounts. Clenching her fist, she decides she must get away from him immediately. She confronts him directly, asking if there's a problem with her name before announcing her departure. Turning her back on him, she walks away with purpose. He watches her leave with a faint smirk, quietly murmuring her name. He cynically remarks that a name like Hyo-seong doesn't suit her in the least. As she walks away, she worries that the general might spread strange rumors about her. Shaking off her fear, she resolves to tear his mouth open if he dares to spew nonsense. The scene transitions to a peaceful, sunlit gate surrounded by lush greenery. Hyo-seong finds herself in an unfamiliar garden, wondering where in the palace she is. She looks around the serene garden, a thoughtful expression on her face. Nearby, Daegan stands by a pond, lost in thought. He thinks to himself that he has finally found her. Hyo-seong wanders through the beautiful, secluded grounds. The path leads to a quiet pavilion, overlooking a lily pond. A strange feeling of familiarity washes over her as she wonders if she's been here before. She continues walking along the stone-lined path. Spotting Daegan's back, she mistakes him for Haesol and asks why he is there. Realizing her error, she apologizes for intruding and offers to leave. He pauses, quietly asking how she found this place. She explains that she arrived by wandering aimlessly and asks where they are. Daegan explains that this cherished place was a sanctuary for his father, and now for him. With a guilty grimace, she realizes she's the reason he needed a sanctuary this time. As they walk together, he voices his concern about her going to war while still wounded. He expresses his deep suspicion that the map General Daegang found is a trap. She scoffs at his distrust, reminding him that scouts have already been sent to verify it. Turning to leave, she promises a quick return and tells him to wait. He asks why she's so angry, wondering if she's worried about him. he erupts, defensively shouting that he was the one who was terrified for her safety. His eye burns with pent-up emotion and concern. A gentle breeze blows through her long purple hair. Stunned by his outburst, she stares back with wide, blushing eyes. Flustered by his own confession, Dagon runs a hand over his head. He turns away, frustrated that she's rushing into danger and questioning her motives. With her arms crossed, she privately acknowledges his sharp intuition. He sighs in resignation, knowing he can't stop her, and calls her a stubborn fool under his breath. Whap! She playfully hits him, indignantly shouting that she heard that. She fiercely declares that her only mission is to return safely. His expression saddens as he replies that he doesn't believe such words anymore. He gently takes her hand, pulling her down to sit with him in the pavilion. He softly speaks her name, causing her to look down in thought. Locking his pinky with hers, she promises to keep her word and return safely. Dagon watches her, his expression serious and unwavering. He reaches into his robes, retrieving a small object. He holds out an ornate silver flute for her to take. He explains it's a signaling flute for emergencies that he never used, said to sound like a bird. He holds the flute up, admiring its intricate design as it glints in the light. He urges her to take it, hoping she'll never need it, but wanting her to have it just in case. She hesitates, worried about losing such a precious and irreplaceable item. He smiles, pleased that she likes it, and gently insists she accept it. As she protests, he strikes a deal. He'll stop opposing her mission if she accepts his gift. He casually adds that losing it is no matter, as he can get her as many as she wants. Elsewhere in the palace, a man apologizes for not being able to join the next day's campaign. General Daegong assures Guigong General that it's fine, expressing immense gratitude for his help. Daegong grins, revealing that Guigong found the map to the rebels' hideout, but let him take the credit. He claps Guigong on the shoulder, excited to finally crush the rebels, and notes Guigong seems excited too. Guigong's internal thought reveals he is excited because he finally met someone he has longed to see. He vows to never part from this person again, intending to keep them by his side forever. In the shadows, a plan unfolds. A false map has already been given to General Daegong by a spy. A thought bubble reveals the bait, a map to the rebel hideout that cannot be ignored. An old man with long gray hair orders his forces to the marked location to ambush Xinyu's soldiers. Addressing his warriors, he confidently orders them to toy with Xinyu's soldiers before killing them all. After a successful ambush, their plan will continue. He reveals that General Guigong, a spy within Xinyu's ranks, will join them to ensure total annihilation. He adds a final order. They must find a certain girl who has vanished. A hand touches a sketch of Hyosung, as the man reveals he still needs the assassin known as Swallow. The scene shifts to General Daegong, leading his troops with an annoyed expression. A sudden rustle echoes through the vast, quiet forest. From a high vantage point, Daegong wonders why Hyosung is present, considering her a hindrance. Two soldiers whisper, doubting her ability to fight and worrying she'll only slow them down. Hyosung finds the situation strange, as they found no trace of the hideout after hours of marching. A sharp glint appears in her eye as she senses something more. Glancing back, she wonders about the people who have been following them without a discernible presence. She identifies 5 figures, noting that they don't seem like ordinary rebels. General Daegong grips the map, thinking they are almost at the rebels' hideout. His face contorts in shock as he sees the path ahead. He recalls that a bridge was definitely there just yesterday. A vast chasm yawns where the bridge used to be. It's completely gone. A soldier shouts, pointing at the other side of the ravine. He reports that the bridge's ropes have been deliberately cut. With a brutal croak, a soldier is struck down by a chained weapon. An enemy unleashes a flail, tearing through the soldier's ranks. Hyosung draws her sword beside the general, shouting that it's an ambush. She stands her ground, facing off against 5 mysterious, formidable assailants. One of the general's soldiers screams as he's cut down. Another falls, desperately asking who their attackers are. A hooded figure drives a spear into another soldier. General Daegong parries a blow, commanding his men to form ranks and fight for their lives. He blocks a fierce strike from a masked swordsman. A massive, spiked club swings through the air with terrifying force. An attacker brings a blade down on a soldier who screams in agony. Someone questions what kind of monster could possess such strength. Leaping into the fray, Hyosung unsheathes her sword with deadly intent. She soars through the air, clashing with a massive axe-wielding foe. She twists her body, elegantly dodging a lethal blow. Her blade slashes an enemy's arm, drawing a scream of pain. The large, bald man curses her, stunned that he can no longer feel his arm. Roaring with fury, he lunges forward, vowing to kill her. She deftly steps onto his weapon, using it to propel herself upward. Hair whipping in the wind, she poises herself for a powerful downward strike. She slices through her massive opponent, who lets out a final pained cry. Blood splatters her face as she lands, her gaze fixed and determined. She pivots sharply, preparing for the next opponent. The battlefield becomes a blur of motion. She cuts down another enemy with a swift, clean strike. Her intense focus never wavers as she continues to fight. With a final, sweeping arc of her blade, she ends the assault as the last enemy gasps in exhaustion. Her allies gather around their fallen comrades, desperately trying to save the wounded. General Daegong, enraged, realizes the map was a fake and orders everyone to retreat with the injured. She grimaces, realizing the prince was right. It was a trap. Spotting a trail of blood, she realizes the brute she fought earlier survived. Following the bloody path, someone curses in frustration. The large, bald man clutches his wound, furiously cursing the woman who injured him. A long-haired blonde warrior dismisses the soldiers and volunteers to hunt down the assassin, Swallow. A wounded man screams for his brother to help him. The bruised, bald man calls out to his allies, revealing his position. With glowing red eyes, Hyosung stands ready for the next wave. Surveying the forest, someone mutters that their foes are far too skilled to be mere rebels. She looks down at a fallen enemy, regretting she killed him before learning his identity. Flipping a masked opponent, she wonders what kind of fighters they are. Her expression hardens, her resolve unshaken by the brutal fight. A traumatic memory flashes of someone being murdered as helpless hands watch. A hint of sorrow touches her eyes as she steels herself. As a spearman leaps down to attack, a voice shouts a warning. An archer with General Daegong's forces yells at her not to get distracted. He urges a retreat, but his words are cut short as an arrow lands at her feet. She has captured one of the attackers, a blindfolded man, and holds him at arrow point. A hand decisively grips the hilt of a sword. She looks on in shock as the scene unfolds. Another enemy grabs her captive and flees, causing her to cry out in protest. The archer shouts from above as she leaps off the ledge in pursuit. She lands hard, groaning in pain, near her escaped captive. The captor raises his sword to strike her while she's down. Thwack! The prince's flute flies through the air, striking the attacker in the head. Enraged, she screams at her downed opponent. She pins the blindfolded man to the ground, demanding to know who he is. She sees an emblem on his arm, a crescent moon, and recognizes it as the one worn by her mother's killers. Screaming with rage and grief, she threatens his life and demands to know about the emblem. She lets out a cold, chilling laugh. Holding a sharp weapon, she smiles cruelly and promises that death would be too easy for him. The quiet forest path sets a tense scene. The other assailant lies dead on the ground in a pool of blood. Sitting on her captive, she complains that he's annoyingly silent and she's run out of places to stab. She asks who he's protecting so loyally, and he defiantly answers, it's someone far beyond her. She examines the weapon in her hand, thinking the emblem is proof of his master's trust. Through gritted teeth, the captive insists his pride cannot be broken by pain. The massive bald man suddenly appears, swinging his club down towards her. The long-haired blonde warrior rushes in, his blade slashing across her back. Her face contorts in pain and shock as she wonders when he arrived. General Guigong appears in the woods, his expression cold and unreadable. The blonde warrior's brutal strike sends her flying through the air. Lying wounded, she curses herself for letting her guard down. As the bald man approaches, she finds herself unable to move. Her eyes flutter, her battered face streaked with dirt and blood. The bald man stands over her, breathing heavily as he savors his victory. Her bloody hand trembles as she pushes herself up from the ground. Staggering to her feet, she vows that she can still fight more. Her face bloodied and bruised, Hyoseong thinks that she's finally found a clue. Remembering the crescent moon tattoo on her mother's killers, she connects them to the current rebels. With fierce determination, she vows that she has to catch their leader. As she stumbles, she steels herself, thinking she must learn who ordered her mother's death and if it's connected to her father's disappearance, her silver necklace glinting. She stomps her foot, commanding herself to get it together. A bald, scarred man confronts her, demanding to know who she is. A man in a purple cape makes a silent, imposing entrance. The bald man gasps in recognition, identifying the newcomer as Guigong General. Guigong General warns the bald man away, declaring that Hyoseong is his to kill. Whoosh! He suddenly grabs Hyosung's face with a fierce grip. She grimaces in pain as she realizes he is the general of Shinwol. Her ornate silver necklace gleams against her collar. A knowing smirk crosses Guigong General's face as he confirms, "It was you." The bald man urges the general to hurry and finish off the remaining soldiers at the cliff. With cold red eyes, Guigong General declares he'll kill the bald man first before returning. The bald man freezes, sweating in disbelief and fear. A heavy mace is suddenly thrown through the air, Guigong General casually deflects the weapon with his arm. The bald man furiously demands why he's not fighting the Shinwol soldiers, realizing with horror that the general's bloodlust was aimed at him. As the bald man warns him against defying orders, Guigong General stares back with cold indifference. He leans in close, revealing that all potential witnesses are dead, shocking the bald man, who realizes his comrades have already been killed. With a swift slash, the general cuts down the screaming man, who accuses him of betrayal. Guigong General glances back, coolly questioning the meaning of betrayal. He clenches his fist, stating he never considered them allies before delivering a final, brutal strike. He stands impassively after striking down his supposed comrade. As the dying man chokes, Guigong General towers over him. He coldly informs the dead man that he shouldn't have died by his hand if he wanted to complete. Tossing Hyosung over his shoulder, he tells her to find him when she regains consciousness. He reveals her true name, Baekdaezang, and promises to tell her about her father. Collapsing to the ground, she realizes in shock that Guigong General knew her identity from the very beginning. As he walks away, she laments that her body is too weak to chase him. Lying at the bottom of a cliff, she fears that no one will ever find her there. As she lies in a pool of blood, a more important thought crosses her mind. Daegin's frantic voice is heard calling out for Hyoseong. Hyoseong lies unconscious, her blood pooling on the ground. Daegun arrives at a battlefield littered with bodies, where a subordinate reports they were ambushed and couldn't retreat. Haesel confirms that Daegun's suspicions of a trap were correct, stating they all would have died without his timely arrival. Daegun takes command, ordering the wounded to be moved and reinforcements to be summoned. Noticing Hyoseong is gone, Daegun urgently orders his men to find her at once. While tending to a wounded soldier, another guard is startled by a faint, unfamiliar sound. Haesel looks up in confusion, wondering if he's hearing birdsong. With her last bit of strength, Hyoseong blows the silver signaling flute. The sound carries through the trees, catching Daegun's attention. Daegun's expression becomes sharp and focused as he pinpoints the sound's direction. Her energy spent, Hyoseong finally collapses, unable to blow the flute any longer. Daegun immediately breaks into a run. He rushes through the forest, following the faint call for help. He finally spots her lying motionless at the base of a cliff wall. He rushes to her side, his expression filled with concern. He gently touches her hand, which is still desperately clutching the silver flute. Daegun catches her, his expression a mask of pure panic. His hand comes away stained with her blood. As he rushes with her, a subordinate shouts, asking why he is in such a hurry. Holding her close in a clean room, he thinks with dread that her condition is critical. She cries in his arms, her head pounding as she vaguely hears someone mention dead enemies. He softly reassures her that it's all right now, as another guard wonders if she fought alone. He tells her she'll be fine once they get her to the palace for treatment. Haesel urges his men to move Hyoseong to safety quickly. The prince gently caresses her face, urging her to hold on. A man with long dark hair appears in a bright light, telling her to wake up. A much younger Hyoseong awakens, tentatively calling out for her father. Her father gently asks if she has forgotten what day it is. Her father, Yonho, reveals they are going to Shinwol because someone important is waiting to see her. Holding his hand, she asks why they are going to the palace where he works. The young girl, Manhwa, yawns, saying she'd rather stay home and play with her brother. He smiles warmly, promising to play with her after work and assuring her she'll like the palace. She looks up at him with doubt, questioning if she really will. Her father formally introduces her as his daughter, Yeonhwa. She looks up timidly as her father addresses the crown prince. The crown prince greets her warmly, saying it's an honor to meet her. He asks her to visit him next time she's at the palace, and she shyly agrees. He laughs, remarking how wonderful it would be if she became the crown princess. She blushes, dismissing the thought of becoming the crown princess as impossible. Her father watches the two of them with a subtle, pleased smile. The happy moment shatters as she looks up in alarm, calling for her father. She asks why he is leaving so suddenly as his hand begins to slip from hers. His hand pulls away, leaving hers reaching for nothing. Collapsing to her knees, she tearfully begs her father not to go. She pleads with him, asking why he's leaving her behind. She reaches for him, screaming for him to take her with him. A firm hand suddenly grasps her wrist, pulling her from the nightmare. Hyoseong gasps, her eyes flying open in terror as she snaps back to reality. She looks around, confused, realizing she's in the ladies' quarters with no memory of returning. Glancing at her hand, she thinks it still feels heavy from the dream. She sees Daegun sitting beside her, head in his hand, looking utterly exhausted. She quietly speaks his name, getting his attention. Sitting up, she asks why he is there and reaches out to touch his face. She suddenly flinches, crying out as a sharp pain shoots through her body. Leaping to his feet, Daegun panics, asking if her wound has reopened. She grits her teeth through the pain, insisting that she is fine. He tells her he's already ordered the royal physician to be called if she starts bleeding. The image of his hand covered in her blood flashes through his mind. She gets out of bed, telling him she's fine and has business to attend to, ignoring his plea for her to rest. She resolves to see Guigong General, knowing he is aware of her true identity as Yanhua. Dagon blocks her path, demanding to know where she's going in her condition. He asks if her task is really important enough to risk going while injured, and she fiercely replies that it is. He closes his eyes in frustration, asking what matter could possibly be so important. He offers to send an aide in her place to handle it for her. She firmly rejects his help, stating this is not something he needs to involve himself in. Dagon stares at her, his expression hardening with quiet resolve. Hyosung exhales, her gaze fixed and resolute. A title card marks the beginning of the story. She firmly tells Dagon this is not his concern. Turning her back, she walks resolutely down the hall. Dagon's hand clenches something hidden in his sleeve. He inwardly laments that wasn't what he meant to say. He tries to dismiss his worry, questioning why he should care. Hearing a scream, Hyoseong stops and asks about the commotion ahead. Palace maids desperately try to block soldiers from entering their quarters. Hyoseong stares in disbelief, thinking it can't be happening. Guigong General coldly orders the maids aside, stating he's only there for one woman. Onlookers whisper, wondering why General Guigong is searching for someone here. A maid with brown hair quietly wonders who he could be looking for. Guigong General stands behind the brown-haired maid as he speaks. The brown-haired maid looks down with a sorrowful expression. A faint, knowing smile crosses Guigong General's lips. Hyoseong walks forward with determined steps. Opening a door, she calls out for Guigong. Guigong turns, his intense red eyes meeting hers. His hand rests firmly against the doorframe. He tells her he came to get her and orders her to come out. Hyoseong tells him with grim urgency that there's no time. A voice from outside angrily questions the Shinwol general's attack. She threatens to report him, and he remarks that she's learned how to threaten now. He reminisces about how adorable she once was, leaving her utterly baffled. Guigong explains he joined the sweep operation to secretly meet her, and apologizes for her injuries. She furiously calls him an enemy and demands to know who killed her mother. Guigong listens to her outburst with a quiet, stoic expression. His hand slowly clenches into a fist at his side. He reveals that he has been searching all this time. He continues, explaining he came all this way just to find her. He confesses to becoming a servant to the very people he should kill. He reveals he became a general just to find her, clinging to the hope she was alive. He looks wounded, as he notes that she now condemns him for it. He bitterly says her forgotten memories are his punishment for surviving. She inwardly scoffs, suspecting his words are a trick to confuse her. She resolves to stay on guard, even if she can't sense killing intent from him. A hazy memory shows a young boy in a sunlit garden. Back in the present, Guigong and Hyoseong face each other intensely. The memory flashes again, showing the boy looking back over his shoulder. Her eyes tremble as a shocking possibility begins to dawn on her. Looking up at him, she whispers in disbelief, "Older brother?" He smirks, expressing disappointment that she didn't at least remember him. A memory shows her young brother standing beside their mother. A flashback reveals her shock at suddenly gaining an older brother. The memory shows their complete family together in the garden. Remembering him carrying her, she recalls how she had long thought he was dead. Grabbing his cape, she demands to know where he has been all this time. Tears streaming down her face, she confesses she waited for him every night at their empty house. She collapses against him, sobbing about how much she suffered and asking why he took so long to return. Guigong embraces her, apologizing for being so late to find her. He holds her, noting she's stronger but still so fragile to him. He makes her promise never to leave again, and she agrees. Guigong states they must now find their father, who was framed for treason. Hyoseong screams in outrage, declaring her timid father could never be a thief. Guigong agrees, but says they must uncover the truth behind the rumors. He reveals he had his men secretly track their father's movements. His men found a letter, proving their father was at least safe. She urgently asks who is chasing him, suspecting the royal family. Guigong thoughtfully suggests the culprit might be Prince Yunwol. Hyoseong admits she doesn't know the details of the incident from 10 years ago. In the throne room, an official insists the recent raid cannot be ignored. The officials urge the king to hold his coronation to suppress the rebels. An elder official suggests breaking open the heirloom's chest since the key is missing. Another official furiously objects, questioning the uncrowned king's authority to damage a sacred treasure. The king on the throne coldly asks if that is how they truly see him. He glares, asking if they've been calling him a half-king behind his back. The officials bow in terror, denying any disrespect toward his majesty. The king remarks that it seems rebels are not the only ones who mock him. As he walks away, the official desperately tries to explain his reasoning. He pleads that the coronation is the only way to protect the palace. The king turns, asking if the official ever truly saw him as king. Smirking, the king reveals he has the treacherous letter the official wrote. The official begs to be killed, claiming his only loyalty is to Shinwol. He continues to plead for the coronation to proceed without delay. He warns that others who covet the throne are about to make their move. The king turns his back and coldly summons the guards. He orders the treacherous official to be taken away. The great hall now stands cold and empty. An aide reports the officials are gone. The king asks about Grand Minister Beck. Clenching his fist, the king learns that the minister has escaped again. He erupts in fury, demanding the minister be captured and brought before him. He vows to make the minister pay for stealing both the heirloom and key. The aide panics, warning that if the public learns the heirloom is also missing, rebellion is certain. The king slams his hand down, shouting his order to capture the thief. He spins around, consumed by rage. A nearby vase is sent crashing to the floor. The king now turns his anger toward his aide. Grabbing the aide, he demands to know why Prince Yunwol is still in the palace. He menacingly reminds the aide of his promise to have Yunwol assassinated. The terrified aide confesses that Hyoseong interfered with the plan. The king's purple eyes narrow with dangerous intensity. He throws the aide down, screaming at his incompetence. He furiously orders the aide to just separate Yunwol from Hyoseong. Giving a final command, he orders Yunwol killed quickly. The king storms out of the now silent throne room. He stalks alone through the empty palace corridors. A narration speaks of the one who could seize the throne at any moment. The king clenches his fist, resolving to protect his position at all costs. He declares himself the true king of Shinwol, accusing his subjects of wanting his throne. Prince Yunwol stands alone as narration recalls his gifted childhood and potential to take the crown. The king recalls bitterly how Yunwol always took what was his with a calm smile. In a flashback, the king remembers Hyoseong in combat, thinking her a greater hindrance than expected. Hyoseong looks up in alarm, shouting for his majesty. The king looks on with a slight, knowing smirk. His fist clenches tightly within his sleeve. Alone in his room, the king curses in frustration. Looking at a book, he thinks to himself that she resembles that child. The scene shifts as a breeze blows through the open palace doors. He flips open the book to a sketch of a young girl, whispering the name Manhwa. Looking out into the night, he admits he still misses her. His purple eye holds a deep and sorrowful memory. His thoughts turn to the fiercely determined Hyoseong. He recalls her gentle smile, admitting his eyes were always drawn to her. The palace stands silent against the dark night sky. A figure hurries along the palace walkways. It is Hyoseong, moving with purpose through the grounds. A promotional card marks a new chapter in the story. Walking away from someone, Hyoseong thinks that she cannot tell them her secret. She reaffirms her decision to stay, believing she still has things to do here. A voice warns her that if she stays, she'll face even greater danger. She continues on, determined to carry out her mission with her own hands. Suddenly, she stops in her tracks. Prince Yunwol stands waiting for her in the moonlight. Surprised, she asks him why he is still there. He explains that he waited almost until sunrise, just to give her something. He reaches inside his robe to retrieve the item. He offers her a round container of medicine for her wounds. She hesitates, and he asks why she won't take it. She turns her head away, her expression hardening. She questions why he, a royal, would care for a mere guard like her. He looks down with a pained expression, explaining he was simply concerned for her. She questions his concern, telling him he is not in a position to worry about her. She silently reflects on the possibility that he is the one who ruined her family. She reminds herself that he is the very person she came to kill. She wonders if she can continue to treat him with kindness. She tells him to stay away, warning that the officials will not approve of their association. Clutching the medicine, she scolds herself for letting her guard down for a moment. Her eyes narrow as she resolves to always be ready to kill him. She hardens her heart, warning herself not to get any closer to him. Prince Yunwol's expression grows somber in response to her rejection. His hand clenches into a tight fist at his side. She turns her back on him, preparing. He reaches out, promising not to approach her again if his kindness makes her uncomfortable. Taking her hand, he asks her to promise him she will never rush into danger again. He looks at her earnestly, pleading with her to value her own life. Their hands remain gently clasped together. He smiles, relieved, saying he is glad he gave her the flute. Hyoseong looks up, stunned into silence by his words. Elsewhere, a frantic Daegun desperately calls out Hyoseong's name. Prince Yunwol stands before Hyoseong in the moonlight. He internally admits he can no longer deny his feelings for her. Stepping back, she wonders when this all began. Her heart pounds as she looks away, flustered. Yunwol watches her with a soft, knowing smile. He gently places the container of medicine into her hand. He tells her to apply it and promises to give her more. Looking down at their joined hands, she silently questions his actions. She asks him why he treats her with such kindness. He remains silent, his expression thoughtful. Trying to pull away, she insists he doesn't need to worry about her. He tells her he's holding her hand so lightly she could pull away any time. She retorts that she only stayed still to avoid hurting him. He lets out a soft, amused laugh. Hyeseong glares at him, clearly annoyed by his laughter. He tells her meeting her has changed so much, bringing him peace and a smile. He confesses he used to live every day in fear of being assassinated. He reveals his greatest change was overcoming his despair about not being able to see. He admits that after meeting her, he began to wonder about her smile. He asks what expression she wears when she looks at him, moving her deeply. As his longing thoughts pile up, he confesses she weighs heavily on his mind. She takes a step back, her mind racing with a single question. She asks if he would feel the same if she weren't Hyeseong. He smiles, assuring her that the Hyeseong he knows is still the same. She looks down, her heart pounding at his words. The medicine container slips from her grasp and falls to the ground. Later in her room, she stares at the medicine he gave her. She resolves not to get any closer, suspecting he destroyed her family. Though she swore to kill him, her thoughts of vengeance now feel blurry. She collapses to the floor, consumed by her conflicting emotions. A sliver of doubt enters her mind. Perhaps he is not the one. Clutching her chest, she believes he isn't someone who would harm another. Her eyes sharpen with a sudden, pained realization. Looking at the medicine, she concludes his heart is far too gentle. The scene shifts to another part of the palace, under the night sky. Prince Yunwol walks alone through a quiet courtyard. His expression is grim and determined. He slides open the doors to a brightly lit room. Inside, an investigation is underway with maps and scrolls spread out. Entering the room full of scholars, he asks for a report on their investigation. An aide reports that progress is slow due to a lack of clues. A dark-haired woman recalls the family of traitors that was annihilated, but knows one child survived. She believes that child will one day return to take her life. She vows to find and kill the survivor, refusing to forgive the clan that murdered her father. The aide suggests the survivor may be dead and advises focusing on internal palace factions. The woman declares that destroying 3 generations would not atone for killing the king of Shinwol. Yunwol's face twists in anger as he vows to eradicate the traitor's bloodline himself. Elsewhere, the king's aide kicks a stone, frustrated about how to separate Hyeseong from Yunwol. He despairs, realizing that as a bodyguard, she will always be with the prince. He grits his teeth, steeling himself to come up with a plan. The woman resolves to learn more about Hyeseong's mysterious origins and skills. She ponders why Hyeseong feels so strangely familiar to her. Dismissing knowing Hyeseong herself, she wonders if she knew her parents. She decides to figure out exactly who Hyeseong reminds her of. A memory of a flowing purple dress flashes in her mind. Suddenly, she realizes that Hyeseong looks just like him. A flashback shows a gentle man with long dark hair and a kind smile. The man is remembered walking alongside a small girl in a purple dress. She identifies the girl as Baek Daesang's child, who vanished 10 years ago. Her thoughts conclude the child was the former crown princess. A purple flower wilts as its petals fall to the ground. With a crazed expression, she exclaims that Hyeseong looks exactly like the missing Yeonhwa.